Top 5 Bellator Welterweight Logan Storley. First and foremost, how are things in preparation for Bellator 258?
They're good, man. I'm excited to get back in there. Have some wrongs to right, and I think I'm just really excited to get back within 6 months. The last year for everybody. It's not just me. It's all fighters and everybody in general just wants to stay active, and people want to go back to their jobs, and we want to continue to fight more than once a year. And so it's been a really weird year to year and a half for all of us. And so now things are kind of looking more normal. And so I'm excited to get back in there and fight again and hopefully stay active.
There you go. Very briefly, I just wanted to touch on this. Your original opponent, Achilles Motor, obviously fell out with COVID issues. First and foremost, what was your opinions on that matchup, and what was the feeling like when you found out Motor was out of the fight?
I watched him. He fought Derek Anderson, which he was winning the fight. Obviously, weird ending. He's a tough opponent. Trains as Glover, so I know he's trained very well. He has good kicks. Has some good pressure against the cage. Gets to his takedowns. Took back control on Anderson a couple times. I liked where I stood with my wrestling and my pressure, and just keeping that high pace. And I'll say it over and over again. But when you train with guys like Gilbert Burns, Robbie Lawler, Mike Chandler, Jason Jackson, used to be Usman, you know where you're at. And then at 85, we got Brendan Allen, Phil, and who else? I mean, there's just so many guys that keep you at such a high. Ian Heinisch now is here. And so there's just guys those are the guys you go with on a daily basis. So you better bring your A game. And I know that I could push the pace. So I always feel confident in that aspect. But no, Achilles he's a tough competitor, and I'm not going to say anything other than really he's a tough competitor, but, I liked my advantages, I think in the wrestling department and grappling department in that fight.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Sanford MMA, I think, has a funny space in the sport because it's not really viewed as a super gym like an AKA or an ATT, but yet name value wise, it has all the capabilities of a super gym. You have so many notable names, and I'm sure a lot of upcomers as well.
Yeah, I think it's because it's new. It hasn't been established, like Jackson and Wink and AKA and ATT. They've been around for a long time. And so Sanford just got the new name. It went from Combat Club. Well, they went from Black Zillions, and then they left and they went to Combat Club when I first was here 4 years ago. And we didn't even have a name then. And then we went to Hard Knocks, and then it was Hard Knocks, and now we changed to Sanford. So we've only been the Sanford MMA gym for a year and a half. But I think if you look at our roster and guys that are active in the UFC, Bellator, fighting overseas, fighting in LFA, I don't know if there's a roster that has as many guys that are there at that gym all the time, not just jump in for a camp, that are actually at the gym and live in South Florida and do everything there. I don't know if there's a gym that that compares to ours.
Yeah.
And so, it's been really great for me, and been great for all of us, is to have those training partners. And I think it truly is important to have those people that can push you every day.
Yeah, of course. I couldn't agree more. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming matchup. So, as I mentioned earlier, Bellator 258 next month, you'll be fighting Omar Hussein. First and foremost, how do you view what you've seen of Hussein in terms of his style and his matchup in comparison with yours?
Yeah, he's a long rangey guy. He has some tricky chokes with his guillotine and his darce. He rolls for things like that. And he's tough. I've seen him get hit, in quite a few fights, and he keeps going. So I know he's going to come in there to win the fight, just like everyone, at this stage of the game. No one's just going to roll over. It's not like your first few, amateur pro fights where a guy's just going to quit out there. You have to make him quit. And so I fully understand that. Obviously, it's my third or fourth opponent change. We've gone through a lot of different, not really game plans, but just changing, each time. And I'm just happy to be there. I'm glad he took the fight, much respect to him. I think I have he has 10 fights and I think I have 12 fights. But I've been at a high level and have fought the best of the best. Last fight, fighting the guy for a title, lose split decision, tough loss. Still upset about that decision, but it is what it is. It's time to get back on track. And so I've been in there with those guys, and the guys I spar at the gym, I know exactly where I'm at. And that gives me a lot of confidence going into every fight that I compete with the best guys in the world on a daily basis. So I think once again, it's going to come down to setting the pace and just controlling where you want the fight to take place. Do you want to take place on the feet, or do you want to take them down and control them and beat them up? And so that is, for me, that's kind of what we've been working on after the last fight is kind of distance, controlling the distance a little better and controlling where we want to take the fight to.
Yeah. Something you mentioned there I wanted to pick up on was that your last fight, what I thought was an absolutely fantastic, I think a lot of people thought was a fantastic fight in your split decision loss to Yaroslav Amasov. Now, I think about 6 months removed from that fight, how do you look back on that fight? And presumably, did you think you won the contest?
Yeah, whatever they're using, the BDI sport is very questionable. We just compared Jason Jackson versus Neiman Gracie stats, and there was 2 different stats, and then I kind of look at mine, they only gave me 2 or 3 takedowns, and I had 4 takedowns. And so there's things like that, which whatever, once again, nothing against Amasov.
Yeah. He
came out there and he fought a hell of a fight, and I did too. But I just made some simple little mistakes and, kind of went too low on the leg. I didn't realize he was going to be as good as he was with the single leg defense. I was very impressed there. I won most of the scrambles, and, we were both dog tired. It was a 15-minute wrestling match.
Yeah.
That 15-minute wrestling match with a lot of striking in there too, but it was constantly scrambling and getting in on shots and defending. And so what I learned was I gotta use my hands a little bit better, and I gotta stay above, a little higher on the legs. And I look back, and that's I was very upset, obviously, looking back at it, and just few little situations where if you get that second or third takedown in each of those rounds, you win the fight.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been a split decision. And so that's kind of what I took from it. And, when I hit him, I knocked his mouthpiece out. I hurt him, and I had a rear naked in on the third round. That was very, very close. And so you need that, I guess. I'm glad to take the loss now, I guess. But I learned more in that fight than I have in the last few years of training and other fights, because it was such a close fight against a world-class opponent. And so I had to dig deep, and he had to dig deep, and that changes you, where you can go and what kind of pace you can push for 15 minutes. And so, I learned a lot, and, I've got to take care of May 7th first. That's the only thing that matters to me now. You're not looking ahead. And I always say that. And Jay Robinson, my college coach, legendary college coach, says it's one match at a time, and that's truly what this is. So I'm not taking Hussein lightly at all. And you look at it like it's the number 1 ranked guy in the world every single time you step in there.
Just back on the Amasov thing, I know you're obviously the prime focus is the Hussein fight, but just very briefly, obviously Amasov is now booked to fight for the world title against Douglas Lima. How does that make you feel? Does that reassure you as to where you are in the game? Are you disappointed because if you had won that fight, you might be fighting for the world title? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was kind of at that point us to, if one of us two put on a good performance, or it was a wild fight like it was, that we would probably get the shot. So obviously it stung when that last judge's decision was called, and then he gets the shot. But it's only good for me, for him to go in there and get the title shot. And obviously I'm rooting for him for that fight. I would love to have a rematch. And so I think it'll be an interesting fight. Lima is big, he's very big, and obviously he's got some nasty leg kicks and calf kicks. And so it'll be very interesting to see how Amasov can kind of, if he can take him down, and if he can take him down, can he hold him down? So I'm really intrigued. Obviously, Gegard and Musasi did a great job, but he's massive. He's 6'2", and Gegard's so good at controlling distance and controlling. He wants to fight at his pace, and he has a long jab, and so it'll be interesting. I'm sure Lima learned a lot from that fight, and I'm sure Amasov learned a lot from watching that. So that fight is I'm excited to see where the odds are on that. I'm sure Lima's a slight favorite being the champ, but I think it'll be a very close fight.
Yeah, it will 100%. I couldn't agree more, to be honest. But if we turn the conversation a little bit back to the upcoming fight, you are obviously ranked number 5 in the newly announced Bellator rankings. Yeah. Obviously, Hussein hasn't fought in Bellator, and I understand there's been complications with opponents, but was there any part of you that maybe didn't want to take this fight and maybe wait for a bigger opponent, or did you just want to get back in the cage and back on the horse?
I mean, obviously, not getting to be on the main card, probably or prelims, I think, things like that. Obviously, going from, I fought in co-main in 2-3 events, and so that stings. But at the same time, you have to get back in there. You have to just stay. You got to get back in there, get that feeling of. And so for me, it was just like, I want to fight. At this point, I guess I don't really care who it is. Everybody else was booked, or guys didn't want the fight. And so for me, like I said, you have to stay active, and this is what we do for a living. Yeah. You got to get paid. And so much respect to him once again. And I just, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickbox, you're always competing. They compete a lot more time. Wrestling, you'll compete 40 times in 1 year. BJJ, they go compete once or twice a month, and same with kickboxing. They're competing a lot. MMA, it's like we get 3 times, maybe 4, 4 if you're lucky. And then it's 2 times. You don't get to get in there and change those small details mid-fight, Whereas wrestling, you could go tweak something mid-match in a few hours because you're going to wrestle again. And you get to make those adjustments in a live competition with a ref in front of a crowd. And that is huge to reach your full peak potential. And that's why I think in fighting, we're seeing so many guys that are older have so much success. Whereas other sports, it's all young guys, and fight, what's Glover's, 40?
41, I believe.
41, and then, Chandler just turned 35. A lot of our champs Kamaru was 33, 34, all the guys are, most sports, you're kind of on your way out. And MMA, guys are kind of hitting their stride, it seems like, recently. So for me, it's getting fights and staying active, and really just being able to get more experience. That's really all it is getting more comfortable every time your feet get on that canvas.
And obviously you've had your wrestling background, so I presume, or correct me if I'm wrong, but I presume that you have added the striking over time. Is this part of what you're saying about experience, about improving your overall MMA game, but with the time in the cage? Because as you mentioned, you cumulatively over a year, you don't actually spend that much time in a cage, even if you get 4 fights in a year. It's not a lot.
Yeah, no, it's not. And so, I didn't grow up, I spent a lot of time once I was like a freshman, sophomore in high school, 15, 16, but it's not like I boxed as an amateur. And a lot of, it's not as big in the US, and kickboxing really doesn't exist for high school guys. And so all my time was spent competing in wrestling. And so a lot of my first fights, I took a guy down, beat him up. So I didn't get to spend that much time on my feet. And now that last fight, we spent a lot of time, and some of the other fights. And so there's one thing from being in practice
Yeah.
You know, compared to being out there and getting hit with a 4-ounce glove, and you know, the crowd and your coaches and just the you know, anxiety of going to compete, you know. And that is why I think, you know, guys that stay active, maybe their body's a little run down at the end of the year, guys that have fought 4 times, 5 times, but they feel so comfortable in there because they're like, man, I've done this. I know exactly what it's going to be like to walk to that cage, get in there, the situations, the crowd, or I guess no crowd the last year. And you just get more and more comfortable. And that's with any job or anything you do in life. You know, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get and the better you get at it.
I don't know if there's ever been such a disparity between how much training you guys put in and how much time you actually spend in the cage. It's only really just hit me then when we've been talking. You know, even if you have I don't know if you do, but you have a really hard sparring day, you can, with the greatest of respect, maybe step out the cage for a second, or take a little bit extra, or, you know, ask the guy, you know, I'm stunned, maybe give me a second or whatever. But in the cage, you're not allowed that at all. It's such a change, isn't it? It's quite astonishing, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's you know, a day you don't feel great, or if you get hit, or you know, something hurts, like everyone, you know, take a second, like, oh man, I hurt my elbow weird. The craziest things, you know. In sparring, you always want to take care of your partner.
Yeah.
You know, you're not trying to hurt each other, but you're sparring hard. And in a fight, obviously, you're trying to beat up your opponent. That's really what it comes down to. And so, all other sports, they're competing. You know, football's once a week. NBA, the MLB, those guys are playing how many ever games a week? 2 to 3. NHL, every other major sport, soccer, they're competing constantly. Golf is every weekend, tennis. And us, it's like you spend months and months and months training, and then you get in there and you get a quick knockout, you're in there for a minute. You know, you're in there for only 15 minutes if it's a full fight. And then it's take another train for how many ever months and then get back in there. So it's hard for people to understand, you know, how much training goes in, but at the same time, it's important to be in that cage.
Yeah, of course. And if we talk a little bit about the upcoming fight, so you're obviously, as I mentioned earlier, number 5 in the Bellator rankings. Obviously, I presume your prime goal is to get up to that world title shot and win the world title. After this fight, presuming, and I know your focus is on this fight, but presuming you beat Hussein, what does your road look like to getting a world title opportunity?
I think then you got to go to a guy above you. You know, now that Bellator has those rankings, we can actually see, okay, this is where I have to go next. And so, you know, MVP Derek Anderson fight, Jason Jackson, my teammate, just beat Gracie. I think Jason's 3 now. Gracie's 4. Amasov's 1 and Page or MVP's 2. And so those are the 4 guys you have in front of you. And they're all booked, you know, besides Jason, and Jason just fought, you know, Jason and Neiman just fought. So that's, you know, got to take care of May 7th. And then you got to look and say, okay, this is what I need to do, you know, to get to where I want to be. And so I like it that it now actually has a map of how do I get there? Before it was kind of like, well, who's where, you know, and in whoever's mind, like the media's mind, this guy is ranked here, where, you know, there was no ranking. So it was hard to know what you had to do exactly to get to that shot. And so, I'm excited, you know, I'm excited to go in there and put on a great performance and just, you know, really, really show off some new skills of mine. And then we'll see, you know, where we're at with Bellator and where everybody else is and what happens with MVP and Anderson and Amasov and Lima's in June 11th. So here in the next few weeks, we're gonna find out a lot about the division.
Out of interest, because I find, especially as you know, I'm English, and Michael Venom Page, I think across the sport is a little bit of a polarizing figure. Some people think he's the next coming of Jesus, and some people think he's a bit of a hype train. What is your opinion of Michael Venom Page, and how do you see his fight with Derek Anderson going?
Obviously he's ultra talented.
Yes.
He's very talented with his striking, his angles, his speed. I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to sit here and downplay that. But we've also seen him get, who did he just fight? Ross
Houston.
And Houston did a good job of kind of slowing him down and controlling him. And Houston's not really a wrestler, and so, and we've seen that in some other fights. And Paul Daly and him, that was kind of a weird back and forth fight. And so, is there holes in his game? 100%. And I think when guys get him to the ground, they control him. But if you stay at his range, he's dangerous. He's he's one of the most dangerous guys in the world at 170. Him and Wonder Boy are both that kind of weird distance where they're both long and nobody really wants to strike with them, and they're both very, very fast. So I think, I think kind of besides the tournament, I don't know, he hasn't fought the highest ranked guys along the way. But we'll see, we'll see how Derek Anderson he's always, he's a tough fight. Yeah. And so, he's an athletic guy that kind of has some unusual style, and he can take a punch. He's been in some wars. And so I'm excited to see if MVP goes out there and finds his distance and hits him. If he puts him down, it's over. Or if they get into some scrambles and some wrestling and Anderson takes him down, then that's completely different fight.
Yeah.
So like we said, it's a fight. Anything can happen. So we'll see, I guess, who brings the better game plan.
Yeah. Well, let's, for one final question, turn the conversation back to your upcoming fight. Logan, give me a prediction for Bellator 258. What happens when you step in there with Omar Hussein?
I think I set the pace and go forward, and I see myself being able to find my distance. And, once those scrambles start, once those takedowns start, that I don't think he'll be able to match my wrestling skill or my strength. And so I see myself getting on top and being able to finish him. And that's really, really how I see it in my mind. And, like I said, we've been training some new techniques and just changing some little positions from that last fight. And so I feel sharp and feel ready to go in there and get a victory and finish him.
After the Amasov fight, is getting a finish high on your list of priorities, and in terms of perhaps reminding people as to your place in this division?
Yeah, it was the first loss I had in a long time, and so obviously it stung. It's different when you lose a wrestling match compared to a fight, and so yeah, and losing split decision. You see guys when you're watching on TV, it's like, oh man, that sucks, but you don't feel that pain, and I've never been. All my other fights that went the distance have been 30-26 or 30 unanimous. I hadn't lost a round before that. And so, yeah, I know I need to go in there and finish and not leave it. And we've seen some kind of very questionable split decisions and unanimous decisions recently in the UFC and Bellator. And so, like they always say, do not leave it in the hands of the judges. You never know what they're seeing or how they're going to judge it. So I need to go out there and put on a good performance, get that finish, and then we'll go back to the drawing board.
Superb. Well, I very much look forward to seeing you back in action next week, and it's getting very close, isn't it? It's just over a week's time. So very much look forward to seeing you back in action. And very thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Before we finish, Logan, how can people find you on social media?
Logan_Storley on Instagram, Facebook, Logan Storley, and then Twitter, I think, is Storley Storm.
Superb. And before we finish, anything you would like to say or sign off with at all?
No, I just want to thank my sponsors, Sanford Health and the Get Biofuels. So they've been really important to, sponsors are huge to us fighters to help us reach our goals. And so I want to thank them.
Superb. Great talking to you today, Logan.
Take care.